Welcome to The Explainer. Let's dive right into a complex but absolutely essential topic: local civic security and the true nature of the justice apparatus within the assembly framework. For those of you already familiar with state assemblies and the four pillars, you know that true self-governance is an active pursuit. It takes real work. But how does a community actually enforce its laws and protect its people without just relying on external corporate systems? Today, we're going to look closely at the whole concept of peacekeeping, the specific role of sheriffs, and how community safety inherently ties right back into our fundamental duty to self-govern.
Okay, here's our roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with number 1, what is peacekeeping? 2, sheriffs and deputies. 3, community safety responsibilities. 4, connecting assembly functions. And we'll wrap up with 5, a summary of peacekeeping.
All right, Section 1. What exactly is peacekeeping?
To really grasp our civic duty here, we need a massive paradigm shift. We have to clearly distinguish between modern, corporate law enforcement and actual constitutional peacekeeping. They are literally worlds apart. On one hand, law enforcement officers, or LEOs, essentially act as private security personnel. Their main job is to protect the corporations they work for from loss and liability, and to enforce statutory requirements. Because their arrests often pad corporate revenues, the system is fundamentally incentivized in a completely different way. On the other hand, actual peacekeeping officials have a completely different mandate. Their organic, true duty is to serve and protect the sovereign people. They are tasked with enforcing public law and protecting people and their property. The focus is entirely on the community itself, not a corporation.
Now, what's really interesting is how our historical baseline for lawful authority is already well established. If we look way back at the Lieber Code, specifically General Orders No. 100 from 1863, Article 4 gives us a crystal clear definition of martial law. It states that martial law is simply military authority exercised in accordance with the laws and usages of war. But here is the absolutely crucial part. The Code distinguishes that military oppression is not martial law. Rather, oppression is an abuse of the power that the law confers. Understanding this historical standard of justice, honor, and humanity is so vital because it reminds us that true authority, even military authority, is bound by strict principles, not just arbitrary, unchecked force.
And that brings us to the philosophical heart of the whole shebang. The key to self-governance is to govern. You see, escaping a system where you're managed or even enslaved requires active participation. You can't just passively hold a political status, you actually have to act on it. Governing, in our system, means actively protecting yourself, protecting others, and protecting property. We learn to protect ourselves through real study and effort, and when we teach others to do the same, we empower the entire community. It spreads like wildfire.
Moving right along to Section 2, Sheriffs and Deputies.
So, taking this from pure philosophy down to practical organization, we look to the land and soil jurisdiction. Here, actual elected county sheriffs are the true peacekeeping officials. The actual county sheriff is literally the embodiment of the public law. They are the executors of the law of the land and the law of the soil right within their county's borders. They are bound to enforce the actual constitutions owed to the states and to guarantee the rights of the people living there. Simply put, they're the highest elected peacekeeping officials in the country. But hey, the sheriff doesn't do all this alone, right? They are supported by a vast network known as American Civilian Enforcement Organizations, or ACOs. Think of it like a giant interconnected web. The county sheriff sits at the local level, supported by sheriff's deputies who act as county peacekeeping officers, and of course, county militias. As we scale up the scope, we have state militias acting as state peacekeeping forces, specialized units like the actual Texas Rangers, and finally, Continental Marshals who operate as international peacekeeping officers on the land and 10th Amendment jurisdiction. It's a remarkably comprehensive support system. Within this massive network, the actual roles are super diverse. On one hand, you have the marshal at arms, often a jural pillar option, who's responsible for maintaining decorum, safety, and security directly at assembly meetings and events. They make sure the physical meeting space is totally secure. On the other hand, historic assembly sheriffs and rangers operate out in the county, actively enforcing the public law. Fun fact, this whole setup is incredibly reminiscent of the original posse comitatus, the historical power of the sheriff to just conscript any able-bodied person to assist in keeping the peace. Today, these assembly sheriffs still dispense justice the old-fashioned way, ensuring true accountability is maintained against corruption and violence out in their jurisdiction.
Section 3, Community Safety Responsibilities. Looking closely at their daily responsibilities, if you take away just one single thing about their mandate, make it this:
The only actual and proper job of government is to protect people and their property. That's it. Unlike corporate LEOs, whose entire system is set up to generate revenue through statutory enforcement, the Assembly Peacekeepers' core, unshakable mandate is community protection. They are there to resolve disputes and keep the peace, plain and simple.
The alternative here, it's pretty stark. The opposite of self-governance is dependence, subjection, captivity, and ultimately, enslavement. The source material uses a really fantastic analogy for this. Having the right to pick blueberries on your neighbor's farm doesn't mean a thing if you never actually hike up the hill and pick them. Having a right is completely useless unless it is exercised. Failing to exercise our right to self-govern and protect our own communities simply leaves us wide open to bureaucratic control and captivity. We literally have to do the work ourselves.
So how do we actually do the work? Well, it breaks down into 4 practical steps for cooperative self-governance. Step 1. Take the responsibility to govern yourself first. Step 2. Choose issues that genuinely impact the public to galvanize the community and build credibility. Step 3. Teach others to protect themselves through study and effort. And Step 4. Become empowered as a community. Cooperative self-governance is achieved one step at a time, one project at a time. It's a real grassroots effort.
Let's move to Section 4, Connecting Assembly Functions.
To tie all these peacekeeping rules back to the broader picture you're already familiar with, think of the General Assembly as the steering wheel of our government. The 4 pillars of the State Assembly are the General Assembly, the Business Assembly, the Jural Assembly, and the Militia Assembly. The General Assembly acts as the driver, but the militia and jural assemblies are those critical, distinct pillars that actually provide the physical and legal backing for the entire framework. Without them, the vehicle just can't operate safely.
This direct relationship between the course and our peacekeepers is absolutely essential. You see, the actual county sheriff is elected by county jural assembly members. A sheriff only acquires their true lawful power when there is an active, qualified state jural assembly present to elect them in the first place. Without the jural pillar actively populated with jurors willing to serve, the entire peacekeeping apparatus cannot be legitimately seated. It all connects.
And backing up the sheriff is the militia assembly. The great thing here is that community safety is highly inclusive. The militia is open to able-bodied members over the age of 21. But it's not just about active tactical roles. It requires a massive amount of behind-the-scenes support, supply chains, communications, administrative duties. As the text explicitly states, there's always something someone can do to help out. No matter how small a task seems, it all counts. Building the militia pillar is truly a community-wide effort.
Finally, Section 5, Summary of Peacekeeping.
All right, let's wrap this up. We've seen the stark, fundamental difference between corporate law enforcement and constitutional peacekeeping. We've explored exactly how sheriffs and militias draw their authority directly from an active general assembly and why exercising our rights is literally the only way to avoid enslavement. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Peacekeeping focuses on preserving public safety, resolving disputes, and protecting the community through local participation and accountability. So the only question left to ask yourself is, are you ready to step up and claim your role in protecting your own community? Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.